just want to let you guys know this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you need to talk to a licensed therapist, be sure to visit BetterHelp. And when you sign up, visit betterhelp.com/juice today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/juice. Be sure to do that, guys. Your well-being is worth it.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, day 2 of the NFL draft has officially ended, and the Indianapolis Colts have come away with 2 draft picks. One that was a little bit of a shock for some fans, but seemed to be coming around. And another one, Colts Nation is extremely divided. And certainly the other half that is not very happy about it. Let's break it down. So, the Indianapolis Colts selected edge rusher JT Tuimoloau, edge rusher out of the Ohio State University with their 2nd round pick. And in the 3rd round pick took Justin Walley, cornerback out of Minnesota. So, Cody, 3 Big Ten players so far. Ballard sticking in the Big Ten right now. Let's stick with the first one here. We'll talk about JT first. We'll talk about Walley second, and then we'll kind of talk about overall grades of it all and like how we felt about it all. So, first reactions now. I mean, we were a little bit in shock at first when we heard Tuimoloau was getting picked because we kept saying, oh, edge might be something that they do at this spot. Yeah. Certainly did not think it would be Tuimoloau because we kept hearing Izaraku, a few other names in there that were higher profile names in that moment than JT. But thinking back on it now, because we've had a couple hours to sit on it, kind of think about it a little bit, what was your reaction to Tuimoloau being an Indianapolis Colt now?
Yeah, I mean, I think Izaraku was the pick, but unfortunately he got taken right before the Colts picked before. So, but yeah, you talked about, JT and just his overall leadership at Ohio State, what he did for that defense, very, very strong Buckeye defense a year ago. He was one of the heart and souls of that defense. I mean, 12.5 sacks last year, 22 tackles for loss. I mean, this kid is a stud, and he's only 21 years old, Derek. So he's definitely, I think, got another level. He is more of that power rusher, Tuimoloau's a little bit more of a finesse type of guy. Yeah. He's about, 265, 270. So he's a little bit bigger there, and I think that's a long-term solution there potentially, next year. I don't know if he's going to be a starter this year. I don't think so because Kwity Paye's still on your roster. You have Samson Ebukam. But still, like another guy that can, at the minimum, be a quality guy in the rotation for you, a player that's proven it at the highest level. He can be dominant, Derek. We've seen it, right? We saw it multiple times, especially in the college football playoffs this year. Multiple games where he had 2 sacks. He had 2 straight games to start off the college football playoffs with 2 sacks. And in every single game, he sacked the quarterback at least once. So, I mean, he's an absolute monster, I think, honestly, Derek. And I know he had some inconsistencies at times, but the flashes, you look at that, he has flashes to be dominant. He really does. So, yeah, I absolutely like this pick a lot for the Colts. And I know Mike Green was there. Some people were upset about that, but also there's a lot of baggage with Mike Green.
Yes, a very big red flag.
We talked about it earlier when we recapped the pick. It's different for each team, right? It may be like, okay, when you look at the prospects, they might be like Mike Green might be a little bit higher overall, but it also comes down to scheme, to fit, to what you're looking for in the personality, leadership. There's a lot more factors other than the pure stats, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so that is something that definitely is a factor there. So when I view that, I say, hey, overall, he was a leader on that Ohio State defense. There's no, background junk there when you're looking at him. And I think he still has some potential to get even better as a pass rusher, especially. And just an all-around, I think, 3-down type of player. Like, he can play the run, he can play the pass. Like, he can do a little bit of everything. He's not, like you talk about, he's not the Latu in terms of stopping the run. Latu wasn't terrible, but he certainly isn't like an elite run defender, right?
Yeah, he's not.
He's more, at least last year, he was more the third down type of, pass rush package type of guy.
Yep.
But I feel like he is not like that. He could do what you need him to do in terms of the run game as well. And, you lost Dio Adengo. That was a big loss for the Indianapolis Colts defense. And so you certainly, when you look at JT here, I think it makes some sense there for the Colts to go and fill that spot with a young kid that I think has shown at the biggest level with the biggest competition in college football. He showed up multiple times. So I was a big fan of this one.
Yeah, and I think that what a lot of fans were suggesting is that this is a pick that not a lot of people loved this pick, but it was a pick that you liked. It was a guy that, there is still more to the potential ceiling of this kid because he certainly is not a finished product, certainly has some things in his game that still needs to be worked on, needs to be more consistent in getting after the passer, no doubt about it. But like you said, he showed you in the biggest games this year that he was able to do great things, has constantly improved every year at Ohio State. You go back a few years ago to that Penn State game where he lit the college football world on fire with one of the greatest performances that a defensive end has ever had in the history of college football. I dare you to find somebody that there's very few guys that have ever had a better individual performance than JT Tuimoloau. So there's glimpses of greatness in this kid.
Yeah.
And you're right. A lot of it came down to what does Lou Anarumo want in a defensive end? The character that goes into it. JT, he said it. Ryan Day had nothing but praises for this kid. He couldn't stop getting the praises out. Like Chris Ballard had to almost tell him to stop talking about how much they praise this kid. So it's like there's no issues with JT in that regard. Sure, the ceiling may not be quite as high in the potential market as some of these other edge guys, potentially. But what people will tell you is from a floor perspective, JT's starting here and a lot of other guys that are taken around that area are starting down here. So they have to make their way up to getting to where JT is. So, ultimately it is a great piece. I don't think that, like you said, he's probably not going to be a day one starter. But Chris Ballard did bring it up. If you make the 53 man, that is an accomplishment because at some point in the year, you are likely going to have to play and probably play ample amount of snaps as the season goes on. And you're going to have to be in certain situations where you have to make a play.
Yeah.
And that is where JT is going to be. And thinking about it from the long-term solution of this too, remember, we talked about it. Samson Ebukam, last year of his contract. Kwity Paye, this is his 5th year. So 2 guys that are going to be sharing time on the defensive line, they might be looking for different teams next year.
Yeah,
so you don't really have any options. So JT Tuimoloau and Laiatu Latu being those edge guys can definitely be an interesting pit for you. What would you give it as a grade if you were giving it a grade for that?
Yeah, I'd probably say, again, draft grades are so subjective, and who knows? We could look back at this in a year and I could look like an idiot or I could look like a genius. You just don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of a crapshoot. But I would say overall, probably a solid B+ is where I'm going for that one because, yeah, I do think the potential of a Mike Green is obviously a lot more enticing. But, Tuimoloau, I mean, let's be honest, like he is an all-around really, really great leader, and I think he's going to make a difference on this defensive line, even from year one here as a rotational guy. So can't fault that at all, and we've talked about it before. You mentioned it, like 2 guys who are on the final years of their respective contracts here, and you're bringing in a new entire defensive staff pretty much, right? You're bringing in Lou Anarumo. We know the type of defenders, especially at edge, he likes to get. And, let him work with some of these young guys. He has Latu from last year, and obviously now he has JT from this year. Let him continue to build his type of defensive ends he's looking for, right? So, yeah, I'm totally good with that one, and I think it makes a lot of sense because it is a need, like it or not. It's a need for 2026. So, and especially if you're a guy that, you feel like shouldn't have been there at that point. If you're Chris Ballard, I know he talked about, I think in his press conference, like they thought he should have maybe been a first-round type of guy. potentially. Yeah. So, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, we know that Ballard, sometimes we've seen him trade down if he doesn't feel like there's a player that stands out to him, or if there's like players on the same level, right?
I mean, let's just say this, Cody. I mean, if anyone wants to potentially complain about this pick, let's not forget the Cincinnati Bengals at pick 17 took a defensive end who had less sacks in his entire career than JT had as a junior. And that doesn't include this year. JT Tuimoloau had 5 sacks as a junior. Mm-hmm. And Shamar Turner for
Shamar
Stewart, yes, had 4.5 sacks in his career as a defensive end at Texas A&M. But because Stewart had one of the highest RAS grades that we've ever seen at the position, that was why he got taken first. But if you want to talk about production, Tuimoloau destroys him in that regard. And he was facing just as good of competition, if not better competition at times. So, again, I'll give this one a B-. I thought that there were other positions of need that you probably could have went for more in this regard. But, again, it's a solid pick. It's definitely going to be a pick that is going to play some significant time for the Indianapolis Colts this upcoming year. So no doubt about it. It's definitely going to be an impactful one. What's going on, everybody? Just wanted to say this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Guys, everyone wants to try to take care of their bodies and do the best that they can to help take care of themselves. But that also starts with your mind as well. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And of course, when you're doing potential therapy, in-person therapy can cost anywhere up to $100 to $250 per session, guys. That number can add up very quickly. But with BetterHelp, you can save on average up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you can pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, which can help you save on costs and time as well. Therapy should feel accessible, guys, not a luxury. You should be able to talk to someone the way you want to, when you want to. With online therapy, you can get quality care at a price that makes sense for you. Regardless, guys, if you have ever been in therapy or not, it is important to be able to get everyday stresses and sometimes even traumas that we experience off our chest and be able to talk to someone and go through those stresses. You know, your mental health is super important. We're all dealing with something. So take advantage and be able to get ahead of what might be bothering you. Remember, guys, your well-being is worth it, and it's now within reach. Visit BetterHelp.com/juice today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/juice. Let's go to the one that has everybody up in arms right now, this Colts fan base. Again, Justin Walley, cornerback out of Minnesota. Cody, it was definitely a shock for you and I. Even you, when that pick went out, you were like, what? And It was was a definite shocker for a couple of reasons. One, the name, we had not followed that name very much throughout this process. And also for the position at the time that the Colts took it was very much different because we were thinking, oh, they'll probably go offensive line here because there was a lot of interior offensive linemen that the Colts probably could have taken that would have been more impactful in that moment than a Justin Walley. So, I mean, what is your reaction when you saw Walley and thinking about it now, an hour or two later from when we saw it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the more I look into Justin Walley as a player, I like him. Like, I think he's a good player. I think he could be a potential, right away special teams guy that could compete, potentially for some snaps and obviously help Kenny Moore. The nickel depth is obviously huge, but a guy that can come in and compete, which is definitely important. But I just think, like you said, there were other positions I probably would have preferred at that point, offensive line being one. Heck, I probably would have even taken a safety a little bit earlier then. But again, like we all have our boards. You see it here. Like you have all these different sites that have these boards up. but each NFL team has a different board. They look differently. So, and I know that there was other teams that, from what we've heard, there were other teams that also were interested in drafting Walley in the third round.
Yes.
So it's not like the Colts were just like all the way like everyone's like, what the heck? Like for the teams, maybe people who had like looked at these boards were like that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just kind of what I've seen a little bit from what people have said. But yeah, when it comes to the position, I don't know. Like, you already have a lot of corners you like on your room. You know, you brought in Charvarius Ward. You still have Jalen Jones, Juju Brent, Samuel Womack, Kenny Moore. You have a lot of guys in here.
Yeah.
And you just look at that and you're like, man, is that really another position? But I kind of look at it like this as well, and Ballard's done this before. If you feel like that player is the best player on your board, despite what position you might think that you need, if he turns out to be a stud, it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yes.
So I kind of look at that like I would have preferred a different position of need. But again, Derek, I know we saw it in our chat, people like almost like saying this kid's already going to be terrible. And I'm like, you don't know that. We have no idea. We have no idea when it comes to that, right? And that's less about Chris Ballard and more about this kid. We don't know a lot about him. I'm going to have to do a lot of research about him. What I do know is last year in college football, again, playing in the Big Ten at Minnesota, he locked down some guys. He had a 50 quarterback rating against him. That's pretty darn good,
That's
Derek.
pretty darn good.
So, I mean, he's a little bit undersized, but the ball skills, from what I've heard, people have said who follow the Golden Gophers, they said this kid's legit.
He's got great speed.
Yeah.
Great
instincts. He ran a 4.3, 4.4.
He ran a 4.37 40 with a cast on his wrist because he had broken his wrist and still was doing some of the drills and, had that cast on his hand and still ran a 4.37. And that hurts, man. I mean, obviously you don't really need your arms too much for when you run, but when you're running at full speed, you're trying to get that time down. That thing might hurt, with that wrist being locked out. Even if it's locked out, like that thing moves a little bit. That hurts.
But the speed, I think that's what Ballard pointed to, right? He's got some elite speed that their Colts were looking for there at that corner position. And let's be honest, Derek, Kenny Moore's not getting any younger. He's approaching 30.
Yep.
You definitely have a need at backup nickel in the immediate. But this is a kid that I think could realistically come in and compete at some level. And at the worst, I mean, he played special teams as well. Like, he has that experience, so he could be a valuable piece here for day one. But again, Derek, I probably would have taken a different position. That's just me personally. Again, I'm just an average fan. I don't study all these prospects. I don't know. So that's kind of where I sit with it right now. Like, I can't make a sound judgment on this based off of it. I can only say with the positions I'd rather the Colts have gone would have been offensive line, maybe linebacker, maybe even safety. But again, I don't have the same board the Colts do. These are the boards that people put out. These aren't even our studies. We don't know these prospects inside and out like the Colts do and other scouts do. So,
and just because these sites have people in certain places does not mean that they know anything. They know nothing.
I was going to say, we looked like not just the Colts, but a lot of teams. They were drafting guys that were like in the 200s.
Yeah, and we never heard their names before.
Who is that?
Yeah, right. So it's not just the Colts doing it. And like you said, Destin Adams, shout out to you, saying this, that he even heard from people around the league saying that there were several teams interested in Walley in that late third round and could have potentially taken him if the Indianapolis Colts didn't take him there, right? So just because it is a player in a position that you didn't want in that moment does not mean you are right that he is going to be a bust. So you need to chill the frick out, okay? It also doesn't mean the Colts are right either, okay?
Well, yeah.
And we could very well be sitting here 2 years, 3 years from now, and this guy never sees the field.
He could be a Terrell Basham.
Chris Ballard could be out of here 2 years in, and this guy has never seen the field before. It was a waste of a draft pick. It could very well be that, but could also mean Chris Ballard could still potentially be on this team as the GM. This kid has to replace Kenny Moore, and this kid turns out to be an average nickel corner that has actually turned out to be relatively okay. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you don't know. And that's the problem that we're seeing here is, like, again, everybody is so quick to bash on this kid, and we just have no idea what exactly it is. And Cody, we've said it before. You and I are willing to sit here and say that as fans, we would have preferred the Colts go in a different direction with that pick. But we are sure as heck not going to absolutely wreck this kid over not even knowing who the heck his name was before that draft pick even happened. Okay, so we're going to take our time. We're going to evaluate it, and we're going to watch him through training camp. We're going to watch him through the season. We're going to see what kind of impact he's making.
Yeah.
And then we will make a determination on that based off of that.
Yeah. Well, the Colts brought in Chris Hewitt this offseason. There's been a big focus on the defensive backs, especially. So this definitely felt like a Chris Hewitt, Lou Anarumo-led pick here, right? And if anybody can develop these guys and identify these guys, I mean, Chris Hewitt has a pretty darn good track history.
Yeah, he has a pretty good track history of it. Yep.
Again, these are guys that we don't know 100%. We haven't studied these guys. We only know what these sites tell us. But the Colts have done a lot of work on these guys, so they know a lot better than we do. Again, this kid could work out. He could not. Heck, Tyler Warren could work out or not.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Absolutely.
The draft is a crapshoot. That's why it's the draft.
And Ballard has already told people he doesn't care what you people think about trading back or taking that guy too early. He even said it in his presser. He doesn't care. So, save the judgment for someone that does care.
But inevitably there will be judgment. I mean, we have our opinions. People have their opinions. So I totally understand that. Feel free to have your opinions and voice those in the comments. I don't really care. It doesn't really bother me. But just trying to keep an objective opinion here because, Derek, we're never going to go glaze Chris Ballard. We have our thoughts and opinions on Chris Ballard.
Yeah.
But also saying we just don't know with this kid. And we've heard some positive things. Probably wasn't a position that we would have preferred. But, again, we're not the ones calling the shots. We're not the ones that are out, scouting these kids and doing all this homework, talking to all these people. Yep. We're not the scouts. We're not the GM for a reason. So
I will give this pick, I'll give it with the benefit of the doubt. I'll give it a C. I'm not – obviously – from my perspective, there's a lot of reasons why it's not anywhere close to a B because obviously I didn't expect this pick. Not less much about the corner position specifically, just certainly did not expect that name. And, I felt like there could have been a different approach for the Colts. That's just in my personal opinion. But again, just don't know enough about this kid to give it any higher. I certainly don't want to make it low at this moment because I certainly don't know what kind of impact he might have right away.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Right in the middle of C because I just don't know. I would have preferred a different position. But again, if this kid comes out in a year or two from now, looks like a stud, he's a Pro Bowler or whatever, or a really high-quality starter, we're gonna look dumb, and that's fine. But there's also the possibility that it could bust, it could not work. So you never know with these picks. But regardless of that, guys, we'll just have to see what happens in regards to the Colts here in the final couple rounds here, the final day of the NFL draft. They still have some needs, certainly some needs I thought they were going to address, but they ended up not addressing here in rounds 2 and 3 of the NFL draft. So we'll see how those certain positions do pan out here in the final day. But guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below on both of these picks, the Colts' second-round pick and their third-round pick. They add to their defense here. So let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. But, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell. We're going to be going live tomorrow, 12 o'clock, noon Eastern Standard Time for the final day of the NFL draft. You guys definitely don't want to miss that. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.